Welcome back to episode 3 of season 2 of Cbus Mob. I am so excited to have Rokki Bonner, the owner of Personal Fitness Navigator and Fit to Navigate. She's doing some amazing things with her companies. One, we talk about how to meet folks where they are in their fitness journey and how fitness is holistic. It's your mind, it's your body, it's your soul, and taking care of all three, as well as her work with helping incarcerated women gain job skills so when they are released, they can make a huge impact with themselves and their community. Listen to learn more, but it's a really great conversation. Welcome back to Cbus Mob. We are super excited to have you today with us, Rokki Bonner. She is a superhero in the personal fitness space. So she runs Fit to Navigate and Personal Fitness Navigator. Rokki, do you want to take it from there? Talk about yourself and your companies?
Sure. And it's Rokki Bonner.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
yes, no problem. I am the owner of Personal Fitness Navigators, which is a small wellness studio inside of Bexley, Ohio. And I also am the co-founder of Fit to Navigate, where we help women who've been just as involved enter into the health and wellness industry. Thank you
Amazing.
for
All
having
right.
me on today.
We are so excited. You are friends with one of our wonderful attorneys here, Shelby Nathans, and she speaks incredibly highly of you. So we couldn't wait to bring you in to the fold.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk about how did you start your two entities, especially the one for women who have been involved in the justice system to give them skill sets to allow them to have an earning, right? I think that's kind of the basis of it.
Yes,
You make
that really is. That really is because the health and wellness industry is $1 trillion industry. The sick industry is $1 trillion industry. But I'll start with Personal Fitness Navigators first. And you mentioned Shelby. I met Shelby when she was in high school, and I was just a trainer at the JCC. Later on, I went on to start my business, Personal Fitness Navigators. And the name came about because I really wanted to help people navigate, be a guide on their journey, a cheerleader, a coach, and that kind of thing, but also to navigate some of the misinformation and disinformation that was out there. I mean, I don't want to date myself, but I grew up at a time when infomercials were out there and everything was like the magic pill, the magic equipment, the this, the that, right? And so I wanted to be like, hey, how about, well, when I found out you can get paid as a personal trainer, I thought,
yeah.
well, this is great. I'm on the preventative end of the sick industry. So when you realize that taking care of your health before becoming sick is something that can be possible, it definitely jolted me. Me having an autoimmune disorder myself from a very young childhood until very much as an adult, where they was just told us like, hey, there's really nothing we can do. You can take this pill the rest of your life. And that kind of thing. It also started me on a journey because fitness did really save my life. And it saved my life in one, knowing how to navigate the food industry, the supplement industry, but as well as it saved me from, because it was a passion of mine, from actually ending up incarcerated. And you'll see how those kind of things tie in back in. So fitness really did save my life some 26 years ago. About 14 years ago, I started, again, Personal Fitness Navigators in Bexley, and it has been very rewarding, like to see people come. We meet people where they are, right? It was not a method or anything like that. It's not like we pulled the water today and it's like, Allison, you got to do this. Because Allison,
Yeah.
you could get out of the car or you could be like, Rokki, it was Mother's Day and I was out there in the backyard and pulled something. I'm like, but Allison, you got to do this WOD that I have for you. And you're like, I said I can't do it. It's basically meeting you where you are that day, giving you the daily dose of what you need to be successful and feel successful in your life. So that's how I figured that's how Personal Fitness Navigators is. And then as far as me being the co-founder of Fit to Navigate, it came all about from a time where probably 2016, I was just kind of like, is this it for me? Not that I'm ungrateful to be able to help people on their health and wellness journey, right?
But you're an entrepreneur and you
But
wanted
I
something
had
else. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I just had this feeling like there was more, like I was bigger than, the brick and mortar. And probably like 3 weeks later, I got this email from a friend who said, hey, there's some women at the ORW who are looking for a personal trainer. I was like, hey, that's me, and it's like one who does it full time. I was like, hey, that's me. I'll volunteer. And again, like I said, 6 weeks before that, it just was kind of like, there's something more for me, God. I'm grateful for what I have, but I feel like you could use me more. And so that opportunity came about. I went through all the things to become a volunteer, the sitting in classes and things. And the day came for me to walk into that facility And I was very nervous. And to be honest with you, Allison, I had no idea what I was
Yeah.
going to say, or I didn't rehearse anything. I just asked for Spirit to kind of just like download in me, what am I going to say? And it just said, share your experiences. That's all. And I did. And that hour and a half went by really fast. And at the end, they asked me to lead the charge to help them become certified wellness professionals. And here we are, some almost 9 years later. Fit to
Amazing.
Navigate is now established as a for-profit organization where we help women who've been justice involved enter into the wellness space. And we know that women working part-time in this industry can be a family sustainable income. And not only that, they can also cut back on their healthcare costs.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to bring that up just for our listeners real quick. OWC is the Ohio Women's Correction
Ohio
Center, correct?
ORW is Ohio
OW.
Reformatory of Women, and
Thank you.
it's actually one of the largest state prisons in the country, the fourth largest. And so, yes, that's where we started, and that's where we are, and we do our
Yeah.
cohorts and things like that.
And when I was doing my research on you, I stumbled on, I think it's the LinkedIn for
Mhm.
fitness navigators, and I was blown away by the numbers you have listed there on how much money that you save people on healthcare as well as
Mhm.
the state and tax dollars because you have people who are able to sustain themselves. So can you share some of those numbers? Because I don't want to get them
Yeah.
wrong.
Exactly. So we find that 2/3 of the women of the population goes back into the prison, right? And with that, obviously it costs us money when they go back in and recidivize. Well, we at to date, knock on wood, have 0% recidivism because we keep track of the women who come out, and
That's amazing.
we still have people with the women when they come out. And so with that 0% recidivism and them having jobs, whether they're in the health and wellness industry or working for the state and paying their own taxes, we save $3.2 million to taxpayers here in the state of Ohio. Now, with that being said, it's like, hey, how can we reallocate this money? But also how these women are also saving on their health care, right? We found that when they went through our program inside the institution, there were less infirmary visits, there were less visits with their counselors because they now had a different type of coping mechanism or a different type of mindset and things like that.
Yeah. Incredible. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, at least from what I can tell, right? You're looking at personal fitness in a holistic way, not
Mhm.
just, maybe having ripped biceps, but you're talking about mental health as well. Can you talk about
Absolutely.
what drove you to look at it in that light? Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, personal trainer, they only care, that I have less body fat.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm gonna go back to fitness being something that saved my life. Not just about what I look like aesthetically, but for my mental, right? And I found that it was a place that I can go and kind of move my thoughts through my body. It was a place that I could feel refreshed. The science is there that once you start working out, the good endorphins go on if you're depressed and things like that. And Fit to Navigate was really inspired by my personal healing journey. I saw the need in the justice impact community where I wanted to create a space for wellness and workforce and like workforce development. They can coexist. Like everybody talks about this whole thing about grind, grit, and hustle and all these things to be successful. But, if we spend all our time chasing the wealth, then we'll spend all our wealth chasing our health, right? And I think that it's very essential that health should be at the forefront, a key essential thing for what success means. Like to have your health is successful.
I very much appreciate kind of that approach to it because in America, we love a grind culture. But if we look at the rest of the world, like, they're like, the joke is you email someone in Europe and they're like, I'm on holiday for 5 weeks. Like, I'll deal with
Right.
you then. And in America, it's like, I'm getting major surgery. I'll call you as soon as I wake up from anesthesia. And I, and something doesn't make sense in the latter one of that example.
And even like just to be fully transparent, not all of the ladies go into the health and wellness industry, but what they are doing is showing up well for their jobs and their employment, right? So there's not a high turnover rate. If they can show up for themselves, then they can show up for you in the office, right?
Yeah, right.
can't show up for yourself, then eventually, you get the job and everything else is going to fall.
And I have to imagine to show up for yourself, at least the way I
Mhm.
think about it, it requires a little bit of discipline in making sure that you're doing the thing. It's so easy to be like, I'll just work out tomorrow,
It
or
it
I'll do that.
requires a lot of discipline. One, to be able to have boundaries, to know when to say no, to be able to carve in time for rest and restoration. It's not just about working out. It's being able to just have a break, right? Because what you just said, in America, we have learned that the grind culture, the team no sleep, overdo it in the workout, keep going is the way, but it's showing us that it's not the way, right?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast recently and it was all about finding moments of rest.
Mhm.
And it didn't mean taking a nap. It could be like sitting back and just closing your eyes for 5 minutes to give
Mhm.
you the ability to keep going. I thought that was so powerful because so many people are like, just keep going. But if you do that, you burn out and then you end up spending a lot more money on health, either physical, mental, or both.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Allison.
So, how have you taken everything you've learned about, you called it the sick industry, which I think is really interesting. We'll, we'll come back to that. But, like, how have you taken what you've learned about this to help catapult your business into where it is today from where it started?
Really just some of mostly my lived experiences. And, we like to say that Fit to Navigate is not a think tank. Like, people say they go to Harvard and they do these things and it was in this think tank. We like to say we're a do tank, right? Like we get this information, right? And we're going to learn it, apply it, teach it, right? If it feels good to you, keep it. It's not a problem. If it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. But at least try these things on. We're going to meet you where you are, right? And so the sick industry is basically like, hey, you're sick, take this pill, um, and keep going, right? When it could be
Hmm.
simple, something as simple as for your adrenals or your anxiety, connecting back with the breath, right? They say, oh, woosah, that really has something when you inhale, right? Because
Yeah.
we teach that the power inside of you is the breath, like connecting back with the in spirit and that inspiration when you inhale and then when you exhale, right? So it's not just about, your abs or how many squats you can do, how many burpees you can do. It's not all those things when you're not even taking time to be connected with the breath. And that's something that if you forget to breathe, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite literally, it's over.
It's over, right? And so, we make fun of it and we call it the meat suit and all that and taking care of it, but also just taking care, reminding like you always have power of choice and you can always reconnect with yourself.
I love it. All right. More about your business. I could talk to you all day about the health industry or the sick industry, but
Absolutely.
we'll talk about your business. So we're Cbus Mob, right? We talk to minority business owners.
Okay.
And so what I want to know is, you check all the boxes, right? You're
Mhm.
female, you're LGBTQ, you're African American,
Mhm.
veterans. I think that's like, are there any others I'm missing?
I check all the
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
boxes, all the
How,
boxes.
how has that empowered you to help your business? Because I think sometimes we can see it as like, oh gosh, I don't know if anyone's going to hire me because I'm a gay lawyer.
Mhm.
But turns out people really hire me because I'm a gay lawyer, right? Like, I don't know if that has had any impact for you, for your business, even if it's mindset. Like, I'm just curious how that's.
I mean, we could always take some stories and narratives and make them what we want, right? But I think that being the purple elephant is really, a great thing, right? Because I'm here in my uniqueness and I'm here to share my unique experiences for those who may also feel like they're the outlier or, they're not part of the masses. And of course, being a Black woman and being formerly incarcerated, meaning I spent the weekend at Bernie's, has definitely shaped my path, right? It made me tougher, made me more empathetic, and I deeply connect with people, the people I serve. It's also meant that I've had to push past a lot of doubt, both mine and others. I mean, my mom was like, you need to get a real job. You can't just be hanging out at the gym. You need a real job with some benefits because you have health problems, right? And now she's like, oh, I see how you did this, right? You came
Yeah.
at it from a different angle. I just personally feel like there's always going to be a no. I mean, especially when you're the minority, right? Because I've seen and I've been next to people where it was a yes and half of their application was filled out, or they didn't even personify or have the credibility. But because we are a society in which there are systemic biases, that's just something that eventually you have to learn to say, listen, I'm not going to let that stop me, right? No is the first point of negotiation, right?
Yeah. How did you have a mindset set shift where you could have been like had a chip on your shoulder because you're like, well, those folks didn't even fill out their forms right, and they still got approved, but I didn't. Like, there's got to be some mental gymnastics involved there, or maybe it's
I
just
mean,
you were born tough and you were just like,
I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, being a black woman, the first thing that people, you know, when you get interviewed on job application, they say, "What's some of your skills? What are some of your strengths?" And I would say crisis management. Right. As soon as we put our feet down on the ground, there's always some kind of crisis to navigate. But also my mom, like my mom was part of the Great Migration to the North in 1965. She picked cotton before going to school, and my grandfather was a sharecropper. So shout out to my ancestors. I mean, they was just hard workers, right? And there was not a yes for them. There was no one handing them any heirs or any money. It was like they had to work hard for theirs. And, you know, yes, the narrative seems like it may not be like it's overtold, but the stories have to be told to remind yourself of where you come from. You know, you're not the first one that had to, you know, go up against adversity. You won't be the last. But what you're hopefully doing is leaving a legacy is that we're tough. You know, we're tough. We can be empathetic. We can also be soft and nurturing. And, you know, we started this thing called the love you give. Like it's a spin off the hate you give. And the more
yeah.
love you give, we just believe that love is the greatest force. And I've had a lot of love in my life, and I use that to catapult me forward.
Have you had someone who's been like your biggest cheerleader to be like, Rocky, you got this, just like keep going? Is it also your mom? Because I love the people who have that duality personality.
Well, you know, my mom, she grew up, like I said, she wanted me to have the benefits. She wanted me to have a job. She wanted me to have the safe thing. And I was definitely a risk taker at a very young age. I was problematic for her. Um, so,
Not for you, just her.
yeah, just for her. But you know, I had people in my family who got it, like my aunt Minnie, and then also right now my partner. She's just like, man, as so much of my cheerleader that she quit her corporate job, you know, with a Fortune 500 company to become my co-founder because she saw the work that I was doing and the impact that I was making. And I want to impact a million lives in a positive way, and I can't do that alone. So I'm here to align with anyone who's all about making change and bringing the system, changing the system for that we all could be better and see each other as human beings and humans instead of just humans doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, what is next for the personal fitness navigator and fit to navigate? Do you have like a 5-year plan or something you've got up your sleeve that we haven't talked about?
Oh man, you know, plans, we make plans. Plans, we make plans, yes. So Fit to Navigate and Personal Fitness Navigators work very closely together. We've had women who've come out and they do fellowships at our studio. They teach classes and things like that. And we're hoping to continue to do that. And some of the other growth plans and scale plans is to be able to get um, this cohort in education and curriculum in other women's prisons, as well as become on their apps and iPads and things like that, where they can
Yeah.
have this information, even if they decide not to go on to be a health and wellness instructor, at least they can learn more about how to take care of themselves. We have letters and testimonials and written letters that we get in the mail from the families of our women saying how much their lives has changed and how they can't wait till their mom comes home because they're now a personal trainer and they want to go to the gym and show their moms off and work out with their friend, their best friend, their boyfriends or whatever. And just like how we hear that the moms are going to the parks with their kids and running around and they couldn't do that before. So our thing is just really to just be able to scale this work, get with other community partners who are all about health and wellness. You know, we realize that we are not a wraparound service, that we do health and wellness well, and that's what we want to continue to do.
Are you looking to expand this outside of Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we are Buckeyes, right? But we want everyone to have access to this work, right? And I think that eventually, if our goal is to impact a million plus lives with more with 10,000 navigators all over the country, that's what we need to do. And I feel like everybody should have an opportunity to receive this information.
Yeah. I think so too. This is super cool. All right, Rokki, we're getting to the end of our time. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you the one last question that I have for everyone. Is there one piece of advice, a book, a podcast, anything that you can leave where for anyone who's thinking about starting a business or started it and needs that extra like oomph to get through whatever is standing in their way?
I mean, I think I would just say to really look inside yourself. There's so many things outside of yourself, and sometimes that becomes information overload. But to really just stay connected to why are you doing this work, right? Why are you so passionate about it? And making sure you're linking with your core values and your mission. So that way, when things don't feel aligned, or someone offers you something, you're like, does that match with who I am, my core values? If it doesn't, leave it alone, right? But if it's something that aligns with your core values, then move forward, right? And, be willing to take risks, right? And don't accept the first no. No is the first step in negotiation. But I would say really, besides all the books and podcasts and things that you may listen to, really tap into yourself. And once you know what you want and your values, then when you hear information, read a book, right, you'll get that meat out of that. When you hear a podcast, it'll resonate with you. When you go to get your coaching, right, and every coach needs a coach, okay?
Yeah.
Every great
Yeah.
coach has a coach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I would leave people with who are looking to start a business, because you're going to need that support system. But most importantly, you're going to know who you are, what your values are, and what you're trying to do and stay aligned with.
Ooh, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Like a good
Okay.
lawyer, it's never the last question.
All right.
What are your core values? Because I really think that's a great takeaway, because without the core values, you're steering a ship without any direction. And
Mm,
taking what can seem like a silly business school requirement to doing a business is having core values. I used to think like, oh, that's just like, yeah, they tell you that, but like it doesn't really matter. And it does.
yeah.
So I'm very curious, what are your core values and when did you kind of recognize that they were your core values?
Man, I probably realized that they were my core values early on and just didn't know that that was the term for them, right? My first core value would be, first of all, is to lead with love, right? Don't always look at trying to get something out of something, right? Because
Yeah.
the way the universe works is a university of reciprocity, right? And so do it from the heart. Secondly is to, stay in your own lane. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to
Yeah,
be
don't do everything.
don't try to be everything for everyone. And I've, being an entrepreneur, I've had to do all the things, right? But that doesn't make for a good business person either.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is slow down, high speed, right? We use that. Slow down, high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pause, take breaks. I like to look at it. We like to look at it like I love basketball. So the first quarter of January to March is the first quarter of the basketball game. We take a little mini break. And then from April to June, there's another quarter. And then summertime, it's kind of like halftime,
Yeah.
And then that third quarter, we get back to it. And by the fourth quarter, we're reflecting over the game, the losses, the wins, the inventory. And surround yourself with people who are not always making debits and deposits. You got to see who's making deposits in your life, who's making debits all the time. And so the company you keep, is very important. So those have been core values. Always be willing to listen. Yeah.
I have very much enjoyed this conversation, Rokki. Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Hopefully, with having you on here, we can spread the message, see if someone wants to help you expand the amazing work that you're doing in the women's correctional system to help give women so much more than the government does.
Yeah. Yeah. If I was to add any other thing, though, as far as
Yes, please.
to any startup, is always have a good lawyer, a good attorney, and a good accountant.
Yes. Yes. Agreed on the accountant.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again for having us and me. And,
Yeah.
And we look forward to connecting again in any way we can in the community. Thank you.
Awesome.